Today's case is nothing short of a nightmare. A mother with her own rough history lets a man into her life who she thinks is going to save her. She finally thought that after years of abusive, toxic relationships, that her life was taking a turn in the right direction. But tragically, she was wrong, and her daughter, who loved and trusted the both of them, was the one who had to pay the ultimate price. But before we get into this horrific case, if you guys are looking for the perfect gift for your mother on this Mother's Day, then you're going to want to hear from today's sponsor, Raycon. Raycon's everyday earbuds make your everyday just a little bit easier. Moms are always on the go, from late nights to early mornings, juggling work, family, and everything in between. Every mom could use a moment to herself to relax and listen to her favorite music or podcasts with the best crystal clear sound. And that is where Raycons come in. Raycon's new and improved model of earbuds offer everything you love about Raycons plus more. You can enjoy the ergonomic design, multi-point connectivity that lets your pair connect to two devices at once, and they have active noise cancellation. They also come in a variety of new, vibrant colors that complement any and all skin tones. I personally snagged a pair of their forest green earbuds, which I think are so cute and unique. I've actually been really into these kinds of greens lately, if you can't tell by what I'm wearing. I personally use my Raycons every single day for working out and listening to music or when I'm traveling. But sometimes I actually do forget to charge them, which can be a pain. But the new Raycons offer a new quick charge function, which delivers 90 minutes of battery time with just a 10-minute charge, which is literally perfect for when I forget to charge them. I just put them on the charger while I'm on the way to the gym, and boom, I have the perfect amount of battery life. Then, when fully charged, they still have an amazing battery life, offering 8 hours of playtime and a 32-hour battery life. The other feature I'm obsessed with is their active noise cancellation. That's a feature that's actually really difficult to find at such an affordable price point, so that's actually why I have multiple pairs for myself and why I always get them for my loved ones. I also love their new protective covers, which come in so many unique designs and offer wireless charging capabilities. I love how my protective cover looks. It helps put my mind at ease knowing my earbuds are protected while I'm out and about with them. I know your mom will love her Raycons just as much as I love mine, so go ahead and give them a try out for yourself or get them as a gift. Click the link in the description box below or head to buyraycon.com/RSTC to get up to 20% off your purchase site-wide. That's right, you can get up to 20% off everything on Raycon's website when you go to buyraycon.com/RSTC. Thank you again so much to Raycon for partnering with me on today's video. With that being said, let's get into today's case. Charlise Mutten was the daughter of Scott Hensby and Callista Mutten. From the time Charlise was just a baby, she had gone through a lot, but Charlise was always such a resilient little girl. Shortly after she was born, her parents split up, and for the remainder of her life, she had very little contact with her father. Meanwhile, her mother, Callista, had a lifelong struggle with drugs, which continued after Charlise was born. Then, when Charlise was just 4 years old in 2017, Callista was arrested after she caused an accident while driving high on meth. She actually killed the passenger who was in the car with her, so she was charged and convicted of dangerous driving causing death. For this, she only ended up being sentenced to 3 years behind bars, which to me is not nearly enough for causing the death of another person, but nonetheless, that's what happened. Due to this, Charlise was sent to live with her grandparents, Deborah and Clinton Mutten, in Queensland, Australia. They became her legal guardians and raised her for the years that followed. According to Deborah and Clinton, Charlise was just the sweetest little girl. Charlise was known to love books, especially the Dog Man series. She had a deep love for animals, especially dogs, which led her to having dreams of becoming a veterinarian one day. She always did well in school, especially in subjects of grammar, spelling, and math. She was active, enjoyed being outside, and loved swimming and karate. Deborah and Clinton were so very proud of their little girl. They loved taking her to school every day, helping her with her homework, and watching her grow into a confident, happy, healthy girl despite all of the challenges she faced in life. While living with her grandparents, Charlise did keep in contact with her mother via phone calls and letters. Sometimes she got to visit her in prison, which always made Charlise so excited. She still loved her mother so very much and was looking forward to the day that she would be released so the two could spend even more time together. Now, during this time, Callista became romantically involved with a man who she met about a year into her incarceration. His name is Justin Stein, and now I'm going to take a moment to discuss his background. He was around 30 at the time that he met Callista. He was originally from Sydney, the son of two prominent wealthy antique dealers. He attended an all-boys private school with tuition starting at $26,000 per year. He lived in a lavish, luxurious home with his parents, never wanting for anything and living a very privileged lifestyle. However, according to those who knew him in high school, he was always just an asshole, to put it bluntly. He was known to bully his peers and even his family members. He always got into trouble, never putting a second thought into his actions. While in high school, he began using and selling drugs like heroin, meth, and marijuana. Eventually, his house became the spot for these privileged rich kids to go off and do drugs, trying to add some excitement to their boring upper-class lives. Throughout that time, he was known to take advantage of everyone around him, never wanting to accept accountability for any of his actions. He had a few run-ins with police, but nothing ever seemed to stick. And based on the information we will later find out about his parents, it seemed that they sort of enabled his reckless behavior. His drug habit continued into his early 20s, and eventually by 2016, he was finally arrested for his drug possession and intent to sell, leading to a 6-year prison sentence. Which, to me, the fact that he got double the amount of time for being caught with drugs than someone who literally killed someone while also high on drugs just absolutely blows my mind. But again, as he was in jail for his sentence, that is when he met and started a relationship with Callista. For the 2 years after they met, they communicated as often as they could, writing letters back and forth, expressing their love for one another. They were also able to call each other, and eventually, Justin started joining in on the calls between Callista and her daughter Charlise. At that time, it seems that Justin was kind and caring, excited to become a part of Callista and her daughter's life. And it seemed like Charlise really liked Justin, telling her grandparents that she thought he was just the coolest guy. By September of 2019, Callista was released from prison. From there, she continued her relationship with Justin, patiently awaiting his release, which finally came about a year later in November of 2020. After his release, the couple quickly became engaged and were able to finally start their relationship on the outside. After his release, the two moved to an area outside of Sydney onto a property owned by Justin's parents in Mount Wilson. Where they lived was about a 9-hour drive from where Charlise was living with her grandparents in Tweed Heads. I want to note that even though Callista was released from prison, she still had to undergo a court-ordered rehab program, so Charlise was set to live with her grandparents for the foreseeable future. So for the months that followed Callista's release, they had to plan times for them to visit each other, which mostly took place on holidays or special occasions. After starting their relationship outside of prison, Callista reported to friends that she was the happiest she had been in a long time. After a lifetime of abusive, toxic relationships, she thought she finally found her one, her true love. According to messages later uncovered, she told friends that he treated her so well. He's totally loyal and she has no worries about him. She knows that her heart is safe with him. And again, she was starting to really bond with her daughter as well. At one point, Charlise asked Justin if he would be a good dad to her and was looking forward to the prospects of finally having the dad that she never had, which just absolutely breaks my heart to hear. By April of 2021, Charlise was supposed to visit her mother in the Blue Mountains for Easter, but those plans fell through. She was absolutely distraught and heartbroken over this. She just wanted to see her mother and the man that she thought could be her new father. However, these plans were ultimately rescheduled, so now she was set to stay with her mother for a few weeks from Christmas until a little bit after the new year. For the months that followed, Charlise waited in excitement. This would be the best Christmas ever. By December 21st, 2021, Deborah and Clinton took Charlise to the airport in Queensland, about to send her off to Sydney to spend the holidays with her mother. Of course, they knew that they were going to miss her and were nervous for her to be away for so many days. But they were really happy that their baby got to spend time with her own mother. So before sending her off, they told her to behave and make them proud. After the flight, Charlise was met in Sydney with Callista and Justin. They picked her up and drove about an hour and a half to the Blue Mountains, where they spent the next few days with Justin's family. They spent Christmas at his mother's house before heading to a caravan park near Hawkesbury River in Lower Portland. There, Justin had a caravan and another property owned by his parents. They spent a few days in this area before returning to Mount Wilson. For the following days, they spent their time between the two properties because Justin and Callista had intentions of eventually moving from Mount Wilson to Lower Portland, which are about an hour and a half apart. By the evening of January 11th, 2022, Charlise and her mother, Callista, spent some time swimming at the property in Lower Portland before Justin let them know that he was heading to Mount Wilson to grab some items. During this time, Charlise had been spending time playing with Justin's dog, Dozer, when she found out that Dozer was going with Justin. So she asked her mom if she could actually go with them. Callista agreed, and so Justin, Charlise, and Dozer all left the area to head to Mount Wilson. The plan was for the three of them to spend the night in Mount Wilson before heading back to Lower Portland in the morning. After they left, Justin texted Callista by around 8:20 p.m. to let her know that they arrived in Mount Wilson safely. He said that he was cooking dinner for them while Charlise was watching TV and playing with some balloons. She didn't hear anything else from him for the remainder of the night, so she assumed that everything must have been going fine. No news is good news. However, by around 9 a.m. the following morning, Justin called Callista to update her on the situation. We don't know exactly what they spoke about at that time, but by 10 a.m., Justin sent her a text saying that Charlise had been throwing up all morning. He then sent her another text about 15 minutes later saying that he was about to head back to Lower Portland, but Charlise wasn't coming with him. He said that due to how sick she had been all morning, he opted to leave her at home with a friend so that she wouldn't have to sit in the car for so long. At around 10:15 a.m. on January 12, 2022, Justin left the property in Mount Wilson and made the drive over to Lower Portland. After picking Callista up, the two drove to Sydney, where we would later find out that they picked up drugs and spent the rest of the day getting high and having sex. That entire time, anytime Callista asked about her daughter, Justin assured her that she was with a really good friend of his. She was someone he trusted. She had offered to take care of Charlise, adding that she was basically as good as a nurse. By 8:45 p.m. that same evening, Justin and Callista returned to the property in Mount Wilson, where Callista was expecting to see her daughter. But to her surprise, she was not there. Justin also appeared confused at that time and started searching around for her, but said that maybe his friend took Charlise over to her house to care for her there. He tried calling her, but wasn't able to get a hold of her. At this point, Callista started getting worried about her daughter's well-being. She started calling nearby hospitals to see if Charlise had been admitted as a patient, but no one had any patients with her name. After being unable to locate her daughter, of course, Callista started panicking, and for the remainder of the night, she and Justin continued arguing and arguing until they finally went to bed that night. But after Justin fell asleep, Callista went through his phone and found that on the previous night when he was with Charlise, he had been active on dating apps. He had also been messaging one of her friends and watched countless pornography videos. This, of course, pissed her off to the point that she got up, took Justin's keys, and left the property in his car. After leaving, she texted him saying, "You're a liar, a cheat, and now I've lost my daughter." After leaving in Justin's car, he called Callista countless times. She continued texting him on and off saying, "I just want my daughter and I'm not losing my daughter over you." As that was happening, Justin tried calling her over and over and over again, all of which were sent to voicemail. He then left multiple voice messages on her phone saying that he wants his car back, and then he started threatening her.
"Guess what? The other car just started, and I've got my guns, and I'm going to kill you now. I'm serious. You me over for the last time. And you doing this with Charlise to me, wasn't it? I'm going to kill you!" Callista, bring back the car now. The police are on their way. Have fun. Between everything I can put on you, you're going down, dog.
By the early morning hours of January 13th, Callista finally returned to the property in Justin's car, but he was absolutely pissed. As soon as she got back, he grabbed her phone and smashed it. He then started physically attacking her until she escaped and hid in a bush. There, she waited for several hours until he finally calmed down. Once he had collected himself, Callista went back to the property where once again she demanded answers for Charlise's whereabouts. And at this time, the story actually changed. Now he was telling her that Charlise had actually been kidnapped by some of his former associates, dangerous men within the drug trafficking scene. He said that they can't call the police to report her missing because if police get involved, then these men would have no problem hurting Charlise. At that time, he told Callista that he would drive over to Sydney to look for Charlise among his former drug associates. He took his boat with him on this drive, saying that it was important to have the boat because if he needed to step up to these criminals, he needed a way to get rid of the evidence, aka get rid of their bodies. He told her not to worry. He would brave these dangerous men. He would find Charlise and get her back, no matter the cost. By 4:15 p.m. that same day, Justin headed off to Sydney, taking his truck and towing his boat behind. Once he arrived in Sydney, he spent the rest of the evening and into the late night hours texting Callista to assure her that he was searching for Charlise. He spent countless hours searching for her for the 12 hours that followed. But once he returned back to Mount Wilson at 4:30 a.m. on January 14th, he informed Callista that he was unable to locate her. Finally, they made the decision to report her as missing. Callista called emergency services at 8:12 a.m. on January 14th. They arrived shortly after and began interviewing her about what happened. At that time, Justin was actually not on the property with her. He had to return to Sydney, I guess, to get a prescription, but it could have been planned this way so that he wasn't there when police got there. Either way, Callista initially told officers everything that I've told you up to this point. How Charlise had been visiting since just before Christmas. They were going back and forth between the properties at Mount Wilson and Lower Portland because they were planning on moving to Lower Portland within a few weeks. One of the nights, Charlise went with Justin back to the property in Mount Wilson while she stayed back in Lower Portland. She has not seen her daughter since then. A few hours later, police then interviewed Justin. In that initial interview, Justin appeared to be frazzled and upset. He kept saying that he blamed himself. He felt responsible for leaving Charlise with a friend who he thought he could trust. He said that he had no reason to lie and was acting polite and cooperative with the officers.
I just want the truth. That's all we want. And as we're saying, if there's been an accident, we need to be
Charlise
told that.
back. That kid really does mean the world to me, you know what I mean? I mean, like I said, like, I haven't had experience with kids, but like, this was my chance.
Yeah.
Like, she was gonna be like my little girl.
If there's been some horrible tragedy, we need to know.
I know. Oh, trust me, I know. I really do. Like, I do.
As we say, in this scenario, if something's happened, we really need to know.
I know.
Mate, if you feel like you've gone down a certain path and you've gone too far, that's not the case.
No.
I haven't.
That's not the case.
I haven't gone down any paths. Like, I don't want to go down any paths, you know what I mean?
You know what I'm saying?
Yes,
with
I
that?
know exactly
You feel
what
like
you're
things
saying.
have gone too far, it's out of control, and you
I know
can't
what
go,
you mean.
go back. That's
I
not
can say, like, with my own past, if I really do need help, I will ask. Like, even if it means getting in trouble, I've always handed myself in. I've always done my bail. I've always done the right thing.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like, I've got no reason to lie to you guys. Even if I am in shit, I'll literally say, straight up, like, I'll be honest with you, I always have been. Okay. And that's just how I am. Like, I know certain things, like with my past, like, you know what I mean, I don't want to create issues, but other than that, like, I'm open and honest.
But by the time he went in for his second interview, his whole story and demeanor switched up. Now he was admitting that parts of his previous interview were lies. He said that Charlise's disappearance was killing him, so he needed to come clean about what he knew. He said that Callista and her side of the family had been having some issues. There had always been custody issues between Callista and her mother, Deborah, so Callista started coming up with a plan to get Charlise for good. She no longer wanted to share custody. So, he said that he doesn't actually know where Charlise is, but that Callista has been planning on taking her for quite some time. He brought up how Callista stole his car that night, maybe as a way to get another car to take Charlise somewhere. He said that once he realized his car was gone, he freaked out, and so he wanted to call the police, but Callista wouldn't allow him to. He said that the whole story about his friend taking Charlise, that was actually made up by Callista. She told Justin to tell the story to officers so that they wouldn't be caught. He said that the reason he told the first story to police was so that he could protect his fiancée, but now he just wants Charlise to come home safe. He no longer is going to cover for Callista.
I mean, there was truth to it, but there was also certain aspects which were missing. Yep. I mean, the whole fucking, what do you call it, real estate lady, that's not my thing. That was Callista's thing. I never had Charlise on Wednesday. She's had her the whole time. Callista has been talking about literally doing a runner with Charlise for quite some time. Like I said, she and I have been having problems. And, well, this was essentially one of the issues, you know what I mean? I don't know, I can't describe, like, just her reason and thinking, and just, like I said, she's got a lot of issues when it comes to her mum and the custody and just, like, her history, how she went to jail, all of that. Like, it's just beyond f***ed up the way their whole dynamic is.
Yeah.
And anyway, like, Callista's been planning to take Charlise. As for where she actually is, I don't know. I didn't know when she was going to do it. I know when it all started to happen because she literally rocked up and tried to steal my car.
But by this point, little Charlise has yet to be found, and police still didn't know what to make of the situation. So, as a part of their investigation into finding her, they confiscated both Callista and Justin's cell phones to see if anything within their cell phone data could lead them in any direction. And thankfully, what they found on Justin's phone proved to be exactly what they needed to put the pieces together. According to Justin's cell phone location data, it showed that he left Mount Wilson by 4:13 p.m. on January 13th. He headed toward Sydney, towing his boat behind. But based on the route he took, officers tracked down CCTV footage that gave them even more information about his movements that day. CCTV footage showed that as he was driving, he had a large plastic barrel in the bed of his truck. By 5:22 p.m., he then stopped at a hardware store near Sydney. CCTV footage from that store showed him purchasing 5 bags of sand. By 5:50 p.m., he then stopped at a nearby gas station where he filled his tank and bought himself a snack. On their surveillance footage, it showed Justin appearing calm and unbothered. He showed no sign of distress or anxiety. He appeared as any other normal guy. For the hours that followed, cell phone data showed that he drove to different boat docks and wharves around Sydney. According to CCTV footage at the various boat ramps he stopped at, each one seemed to be pretty busy, so he didn't get the chance to dock his boat. There was one ramp where he spent a few hours hoping to dock his boat, but he was unable to. Finally, by around 1:30 a.m., now going into January 14th, cell phone data placed Justin in a remote area along the Colo River. He spent about 2 hours there before heading back to Mount Wilson. Because of how much time he had spent there, and this being the last place he stopped at before returning home, officers felt that this area may be significant in the timeline, so they went along that river to search. By January 18th, officers went to the river where they first found a small pile of sand located near the river. They continued towards the river near where the sand pile was and looked down the embankment and towards the river. There, they found a big blue plastic barrel that matched the one seen in the back of Justin's truck. It had gotten stuck between a big rock and some tree branches. Of course, officers went down the embankment to open that barrel and see what was inside. And I'm sure, as many of you may have predicted, what they found in that barrel was horrifying. When they first opened it, a ton of sand spilled out. Then they removed a black garbage bag, which contained a bunch of random dirt and vegetation that looked to have blood on it. Then, finally, beneath that bag, they removed another black garbage bag, which had been sealed with duct tape. Upon removing the duct tape and getting inside that bag, they found a body, the body of a young girl. The body would later be identified as belonging to then 9-year-old Charlise Mutten. She had been killed. Then her body was wrapped in a white plastic tarp along with 2 additional blue tarps, all of which were covered in dirt and blood stains. She had then been placed within that garbage bag, which again was taped shut. She then was placed in the barrel head first, as she had been found in the fetal position with her head facing at the bottom of the barrel. The bag full of dirt and vegetation was thought to have been scraped from under her body, likely in the location where she had been fatally injured. This was then placed on top of Charlise's body. The blue barrel was then placed into the back of his truck. He then stopped at a hardware store where he bought those 5 bags of sand. After driving around and looking for somewhere to dispose of her body, he finally arrived to the Colo River. There, he took the barrel out of his truck and dumped all of the sand on top of it, hence that sand pile officers first saw. He then sealed the barrel and brought it to the top of the embankment, and it seemed that he tried moving it, but it was too heavy for him to actually move it to a location where he could place it, so he just pushed it over the edge and into the river. Of course, it's assumed that Justin's goal was for the barrel to be swept away by the currents far enough away that it would never be discovered. But luckily for investigators, and not so much for Justin, the barrel got stuck right in that spot, making it easy for investigators to find. Up to this point, investigators had been desperately hoping to find Charlise alive, but once they made this gruesome discovery, they realized that something horrific happened to her. The last person known to be with her was Justin. Not only that, but the barrel she was found in matched the one seen in his truck. The location she was found at also matched Justin's cell phone. All signs pointed to Justin, so that same day, January 18th, 2022, Justin was arrested on suspicion of Charlise's murder. In the meantime, as Justin awaited his upcoming hearings and subsequent trial in jail, Charlise's body was sent to the medical examiner's office for an autopsy, and what they found painted a very disturbing picture of what Charlise went through in her last moments. Turns out, at some point during the 14 or 15 hours she was with Justin, he shot her 2 times with a .22 caliber bolt-action rifle. The first shot was to the left side of her low back or pelvis area. She was shot in the back with the bullet traveling towards the front. Based on how much she bled, it appears that this was the first shot she sustained. The second shot was to the right side of her face. This shot entered through the front, just below her cheekbone, traveling upwards to the back of her head. This caused extensive facial and skull fractures as expected. Based on the ballistics, it appeared that the first shot was from a bit of a distance. Not too far, but there was no stippling or gun residue to suggest that it was from a close range. The shot to her face, however, was shot at close range, with the distance being within 30 centimeters. Again, based on where the shot entered her face, it appears that she was facing her attacker when shot. The toxicology report then showed that Charlise had a schizophrenia medication in her system called Seroquel. This is the same medication that Justin had been prescribed at some point, and it was later found in the home at Mount Wilson. Based on the levels found in her system, it's believed that it was ingested within 6 hours of her death. It is believed that her attacker likely gave her this drug in an effort to make her drowsy and sick. That would have made it easier to render her less able to defend herself against an attack. However, the medical examiner did note that it's still possible that Charlise took the medication on accident on her own, as there's no way to prove for sure that someone else gave it to her. But with that being said, based on everything they found in the autopsy, it appears that the attacker, most likely Justin, grabbed his rifle and pointed it at Charlise. She probably turned away and started running, but he shot her in the back as he did so. The shot to her pelvis caused significant fractures and bleeding, which likely would have knocked Charlise down. He then moved towards Charlise, where he pointed the gun at her face and shot her at close range. She would have survived that first shot if she got medical care, but the second shot was done in a deliberate attempt to end her life, an execution shot. This was a deliberate murder carried out by someone Charlise trusted enough to call Dad. As the autopsy was being completed, of course, investigation continued. Now, they later discovered that the gun used to shoot Charlise matched a rifle that Justin had stolen from a prior break-in entry he committed in August of 2021 from a neighbor in Mount Wilson. He later bought the gun a scope, which he purchased online. Well, by January 30th, 2020, a witness was hiking along a trail off Mount Wilson Road when she came across a hole that she thought was dug by an animal, but it had been covered by branches, so it looked a little weird. This piqued her interest, so she went over to inspect the hole. But instead of being something dug by an animal, she found that something had been buried there. She wasn't exactly sure what to make of it. She didn't pull anything out of the hole. She didn't know what she just found. So she actually called the police to have them examine it. When police looked into the hole, they found that 2 guns were buried there, including a .22 bolt-action rifle that matched the gun that Justin previously stole and the gun that was used to shoot Charlise. Upon later examination, it was also found that Justin's fingerprint was on the .22 rifle. I also want to note that just a few months later after this gun was found, in March of 2022, Justin was heard on a jail phone call talking to his mom. He requested that she go out and search for some stuff along that same trail on Mount Wilson. But his mom told him, I think they found them.
Not really. At some point there is something I do have to ask you to do.
No.
Yes, I need you to retrieve some stuff in the mountains.
Retrieve some stuff.
Yes. Well, you know how I borrowed certain things off my friend to take care of those drones? I never got to take them back. I kind of dumped them in the bush. So I need you to retrieve them.
Oh, I think they found them.
What do you mean? Why do you think that?
I think they found them because they showed me photographs
Of what?
of them
Of what? Where?
in the bush. Well, I think.
I don't think they would have, Narelle.
Not sure about that one. Maybe talk to Peter because it's less.
But yes.
Yeah. But I've got a feeling that they might already have them. Unless they showed me something else.
Why? What did you say?
Well, I'm not going to say over the phone, am I?
Oh, okay.
Of course, it's thought that he was asking his mom to retrieve the guns that he buried, so she went out and searched for them. But she couldn't find them, so she let him know that they were gone. At this point, investigators knew that everything pointed towards Justin being responsible. He painted himself as a good, loving partner, making Callista believe that he was trustworthy enough to have her overnight without her there. That, plus the fact that they were both in the grips of drug addiction, this definitely made Callista naive and possibly even careless, not thinking too much about her decision. Then, once he had her alone for a reason we may never understand, he decided to shoot Charlise. Maybe it was because she backsassed him or was difficult to deal with. Maybe he gave her the medication to calm her down. This didn't work, so he lost his temper and shot her. Or maybe it was something more sinister, like he tried making sexual advances towards her or physically abused her, and she threatened to tell her mom, so he shot her. I do think the fact that he was on pornography websites and dating apps while she was in his care and around the same time that he had just shot her and hid her body points to the possibility that there may have been some sort of sexual motive for this.
Ultimately, on Tuesday, 18th of January, plastic barrels located on the banks of the Colo River and by detectives from homicide and also local police. And with the assistance of crime scene and divers, the human remains were removed from the barrel at the Liquor Morgue. The cause of death has also been established. And I can now disclose that the cause of death for Charlise was that she suffered a fatal gunshot wound, and that's how she died.
Either way, based on everything we've discussed up to this point, around 2 years later, by May of 2024, Justin Stein finally stood trial for the murder of Charlise Mutten. The prosecution argued basically everything I've discussed up to this point, how Callista and Justin started this relationship while both in jail on charges related to their drug use. When they were released, they continued dating and continued doing drugs. At that time, Callista was trying to rekindle her relationship with her daughter, seeing her on special occasions and convincing her own parents that both she and Justin were responsible enough to host Charlise at his home. After all, he comes from an affluent background. He has a nice house to live in. He has good parents who raised him in a nice area. And they both served their time. They were both trying to get better. For the 2 weeks before the murder, Justin and Charlise seemed to be getting along really well. So well, in fact, that Charlise wanted to go with him and Dozer to Mount Wilson to spend the night with her new dad. But during that night, again, for reasons we will never know, he shot and killed her because Justin never confessed to what he did, and there is no evidence to prove a motive. We will likely never know why this occurred. What we do know is that she was probably terrified. She put all of her trust in this man to be her new father figure because she didn't have one. She had been through so many changes and so much trauma in her life that I'm sure it took her a long time to trust anybody. But when she finally started to put her trust in her mom and then Justin, they both turned their back on her. Now, I do want to say this. No, Callista didn't know that this would happen. She didn't want this to happen. She may not have even known that Justin had any sort of abusive tendencies in him. But she did allow it to happen. She never should have let her daughter go alone with this man, and I do truly believe that if she wasn't on drugs and if her daughter truly was her highest priority, that this never would have happened. Callista even spoke out later about how much she regrets putting her relationship with Justin over her daughter, and that in and of itself says everything we need to know about her thought process during that time. Either way, at the trial, the prosecution argued that after the murder, Justin came back with this story of how Charlise was staying with his friend. They came back to the house, realized that she wasn't there, so Justin put the blame on this friend for taking her to her house. Once Callista found that this also wasn't true, Justin came up with yet another story about how she was taken by his former drug associates. It's thought that he came up with this story for two reasons. One, so that Callista wouldn't call the police yet to report her missing because she was afraid to. And two, so that Callista would look at Justin as the hero of the story, making himself seem better in her eyes because, he's a narcissist and he always needs to be looking like the good person in any situation. It's thought that Charlise was on the property the entire time that they were searching for her. When Callista stole his car, when he left those threatening voicemails, it's thought that her body was in that blue barrel on the property or in his truck the entire time. Then, when he came up with the story that those drug associates were in Sydney, this is what he came up with so that he could leave the area and have time to dispose of her body. He knew that the call to emergency services was inevitable, so he needed a way to stall it as long as possible. He used that time to dispose of her body before coming back and finally letting her call 000 because he felt confident that the body wouldn't be found. At the trial, they discussed all of the evidence that I brought to you throughout the video, the cell phone data that traced his location to where her body would ultimately be found, the CCTV footage that coincided with that cell phone evidence, which showed his truck with the blue barrel in the back, the gun that was later found, which matched the murder weapon and the gun that was known to be in Justin's possession. They also presented those voicemails left to Callista, which spoke to his very violent and explosive nature. On the other hand, at the trial, Justin's defense argued that Callista was the one who murdered her daughter. She was with him in that Mount Wilson home, and she was the one who got the gun and killed her. Maybe this was in an attempt to get back at her parents for having custody of her, taking her away from them forever. After killing her, though, Justin admits that he was the one who dumped her body, but it was because Callista made him. I want to note that when Justin was making this argument, he wiped tears away and seemed distraught over the fact that he was forced to dump this little girl's body. But he showed absolutely no emotion at any other point in his trial. Not in that CCTV footage which showed him casually getting snacks while driving around with the body of a 9-year-old girl in his truck, and not again at any point throughout the trial. The only time he showed a hint of emotion was when he was trying to pin the blame on Callista. Thankfully, the judge saw right through this demonstration of emotion and knew it was exactly that. A demonstration to try and manipulate the court. The only other evidence the defense had, besides Justin's own account of what happened, was a psychiatrist who had previously diagnosed Justin with substance use disorder and mental health issues. They tried arguing mental health in this case, saying that he had schizophrenia, which made him act out of the usual, which led to him being more compliant to hiding the body at the orders of his fiancée. He did have that schizophrenia medication after all. I don't know exactly when he was prescribed this or if he had ever taken it, but the schizophrenia could have led to his substance use problems, which all ties into what happened to Charlise. But on the other hand, it was argued that even though he did have substance use problems and was getting in trouble all throughout his life, he never had any mental illness severe enough to impact his thought process or render him unable to decipher between right and wrong. So that argument just didn't really sit with the courts. At the end of the trial, it was argued that Justin is a cold-blooded killer who murdered a 9-year-old little girl for no reason. A little girl who put all of her trust in him. A little girl who just wanted to be loved and cared for by a father figure. He took advantage of her and murdered her by shooting her in the face. He then took multiple steps to cover for his crime, all while Charlise's mother was worried sick about her well-being. Then, of course, the defense closed by saying that all Justin did was hide her body at the orders of the real killer, Callista. After hearing arguments from both sides, the jury was off for deliberations. When they came back, they found that Justin's story was absolute BS, and they found him guilty of murdering 9-year-old Charlise Mutten. And for this, he was handed a sentence of life in prison. Of course, as all of this was happening, Charlise's grandparents, Deborah and Clinton, were absolutely heartbroken. They were shattered at what happened, and they actually cut off contact with Callista for quite some time, placing part of the blame on her for allowing this to happen. At the same time, Callista stayed out of the media because she was absolutely hated by the public. Eventually, she did speak out about her regrets, as I mentioned earlier. She understands her role in this, and she accepted accountability, which I do appreciate. We don't see that from many people involved in cases like this. And I do want to say that her parents have decided to continue their relationship with her, allowing her back into their lives. They now feel that she was partly a victim in this too. Yes, she allowed it to happen, but she never intended for it to. Justin was never abusive towards Charlise as far as she knew. He never showed any concerning red flags that could have led her to believe that anything like this would happen. She lost her daughter too, and she has to live with that forever. In my opinion, and not to beat a dead horse, but I do think that Callista is obviously partly to blame for this. I think that any mother who is that deeply involved in drugs should not be allowed to be with her child in that capacity where she's with her for days and days on end. She knew that both herself and Justin used heroin. She knew that she was an unfit mother. She actively chose her addiction and her boyfriend/fiance over her daughter. So for that, she should have known better, so she is partially to blame. And all I can say is that I am glad that she has reflected enough to understand her own role in this. And I think the guilt of knowing what she allowed to happen is still a punishment in my mind. And of course, Justin is an absolute scum of the earth piece of trash. What he did is unforgivable, and the fact that he won't even admit to it makes it that much worse. We still don't know why this happened, though I do think that it had something to do with his pornography use that night. I won't speculate too much, but you can draw your own conclusions based on this information. But even if that wasn't the motive, regardless of how this went down, he is an absolute monster, and he's right where he belongs. I just hope that the other inmates know what he did, and I hope he suffers with that every single day. Now, I know this was yet another rough case, but this was so important to cover. If you take anything from this video, I just want it to be that if you have a child and you are bringing a new significant other into your life, whether it be male or female, you should never trust them alone with your child until they have absolutely proven beyond a doubt that they are trustworthy. And that is something that takes years to build. If you've only known this person around your child for a few weeks or even months, that's still not enough time to leave them alone with your child. So please, even if you think this person is the sweetest, kindest, most loving partner, Please put your child first. Please understand that not everyone is who they say they are, and if they are a good partner and a good parent to your child, they will understand why you need to take time for them to earn your trust. And if they aren't okay with that, then they probably shouldn't be in your life to begin with. But with that being said, that is where I'm going to end today's video, and now I want to hear from you all. Why do you think this happened? How do you think it all went down? Do you think Callista played a larger role than we know, or is she also a victim in this? Let's discuss this and any other thoughts you have in the comments below. If you like this video, please make sure to go ahead and leave this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. I put out new true crime and mystery videos every single week. Don't forget to turn the notification bell on so you don't miss out on any of my future videos. Make sure to follow me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and Spotify. All will be linked down below. And if you have any case suggestions, please make sure to fill out the Google form, which is also listed down below. With that, I hope you guys have an amazing week. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.